Okay, man, are you ready to go?
I'm ready to go. Now, come on, now crank this motherfucker up.
Break it down like this.
Hello, Internet. Gino, that Pinguino Greco here again with another episode of Deep Listens, and we are getting back into Final Fantasy stuff. We are back with the boys in Final Fantasy 15, and joining me as always to discuss all things Final Fantasy, Chris ZombiePie Redacted. Hello, ZP.
Yesterday I stepped on a banana, and I liked how the banana flesh felt between my toes.
You stepped on the banana and not the peel?
I stepped on everything, then I wiggled my toes, and I liked how it felt.
Excellent. Normally there would be a third person today, but unfortunately, young Jeffrey is sick today. So it is just the two of us to discuss Final Fantasy 15 after our last engagement watching the Brotherhood series of Final Fantasy 15 web videos.
I honestly think that the web videos might have actually killed him, and you've been communing with a ghost.
That's entirely possible. It was just so mediocre that he was like, I ascend. But, alas, we will do our best in his absence to discuss Final Fantasy 15, a game that we both played. Do you have anything to derail the show before we get started?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's a Final Fantasy thing, right?
Yep.
What do you think I'm going to do?
Probably derail the show. Before you derail it, a reminder, you can get in touch with the show at DeepListensPod on Twitter, deeplistens.libsyn.com. We have our comment sections and deeplistenspodcast@gmail.com. You can also support the show on patreon.com/deeplistens, which would get you access to our Discord. It would let you pick a game for Off the Deep End. It would put us perilously close to playing Sonic 06. Okay, ZP, I've done the plugs.
All right, so today I thought that, I was doing something to show that I was trying to deepen our relationship, just you and me. So I decided to buy microwavable lasagna from Michael D'Angelo's. Michael D'Angelo's lasagna with meat sauce, homestyle meat sauce and creamy ricotta cheese, smothered between layers of pasta, then topped with mozzarella and Parmigiano Reggiano. Made in U.S. Uses Italian ingredients. Keep frozen and cook thoroughly. So this is microwavable lasagna. Have you partaken in a microwavable lasagna?
No.
Why?
Because I just make it. If I want lasagna, I just make lasagna.
I'm going to send you a picture of what this lasagna looks like, because it might actually, even by my standards, it looks pretty sad.
I can't imagine why.
It's a little thing. It said that they had 3 cheeses. All I'm seeing is the cheese up here. I guess I'll eat this now.
Oh, boy.
Okay. Oh, God, it's all sauce. Oh, the pasta's like...
I mean...
hard.
It's... Yeah, you microwaved pasta. Did you put it in for the recommended amount of time?
I did. It was 5 minutes.
That's too long in the microwave. That's going to burn the noodles. Okay, fine. How is it?
It's like 90% sauce. There's no meat. There's barely any meat. The cheese is non-existent. The good question. Let me look at the ingredients.
What is the meat in this? Is it sausage?
Tomatoes, tomato puree, water, ricotta cheese, milk, pasta. They used actual semolina. It's beef.
Beef. Okay.
Okay. I'm going to send you a picture of this. What looks like let's say like a scab or a lesion. It's not pasta. It's not lasagna.
This pasta looks like a lesion and tastes like it too.
Ugh. I think what they did, and I don't know if you're aware of that this even exists.
Mm-hmm.
The lasagna pasta that doesn't need to be like boiled, you can just put it in with the sauce and bake it as is.
Yes. Those noodles are a crime. I hate those noodles.
I think it's those pasta noodles.
Oh, God.
And because it's, it's not a bad sauce is the weird thing. And because it's microwave, there's parts of it, even though I did the recommended amount of time, there's parts of it that are cold and parts of it that are too hot for my mouth.
Yeah, I can see just from the picture that some of the zones For the record, I will second what ZP said. It does look like a scab or a lesion. So, you've had how many bites now?
I'm eating all of it. I mean...
Okay. Where do we rate this? Do you need to bonk it on your head to see if it's of high quality?
It's 2. This is not good. I mean, it's like the wateriest, like...
Yeah, because it froze, so that messes up.
I'm gonna like peel it apart and then take another picture for you.
Oh no, I don't need to see the science of this.
Yeah, it's a 2. It's a solid. It's a 2. It's mid. This is bad. Get real pasta lasagna from. Is lasagna like a regional thing, or is like do all regions of Italy make pasta lasagna?
I don't know if it's a regional thing. I will say this: the regions the parts of my family are from, they make lasagna. So hard for me to know if it's very universal or if I just happen to have family members who liked lasagna. But it's good.
I know that the like macaroni and cheese is not actually an Italian thing.
No, it is not. So that's a 2 for what was the brand of this again?
Michelangelo's.
Michelangelo. This is the Michelangelo. He made a microwavable lasagna, and it's a 2 out of 5. Excellent. Well, in that case, now that we've gotten your food crime out of the way, I think it's time to discuss Final Fantasy 15. ZP, what is Final Fantasy 15?
So Final Fantasy 15 is a very complicated game to talk about because it is one of the rare instances where Wikipedia decided to diverge its development onto its own separate Wikipedia page. Because the game's development, as we'll probably talk about during this podcast, is fraught. The version of Final Fantasy 15 that we played and what people will play today and in the future is a pseudo-narrative connection with the Fabula Nova Crystallis Final Fantasy subseries, which connects Final Fantasy XIII and all of its sequels, as well as Final Fantasy Type 0. In fact, which kind of leads to the whole fact that this started out as Final Fantasy Versus 13. Again, we'll talk more about this later. Final Fantasy 15, in the version that released, was meant to be a demo and showcase of both the new team that was being brought into Square Enix Business Division 2, which is their main Final Fantasy division, and also in charge of the Kingdom Hearts franchise as well as like a showcase of the new Luminous engine. Now, for reasons that are still, Square Enix being Square Enix, after their experience with Final Fantasy 13, and they developed the original game engine for Final Fantasy 13 and even Final Fantasy 14, they had their Crystal Tools engine, which in totality was a disaster. Unreal was right there for them to use instead, but they decided to make something in-house that proved to be just a complete cluster, you-know-what.
Yeah, it was used to make the 13 series, like 13, 13.2, 13.3. I don't know, did they make any other games with that engine?
They technically made 14 with the Crystal engines, and then they realized they had to get out. They had to get that game as decoupled as possible. It's a bad engine, let's just say. So, Final Fantasy 15, learning nothing from that experience, they said, hey, we're going to do this Final Fantasy 15 thing that started out as something that needed to use this engine and was a part of this thematic continuity. Gosh darn it, Unreal's and Unity are really cool engines that a lot of people are using. How about we start from scratch and make our own domestic in-house engine? Again, learning nothing. And so they developed the Luminous engine, dating all the way back to 2012, using some vestigial DNA from their proprietary software and licenses that they made with the Crystal Tools system. But then, again, it's new. And now it's promising to do better with AI. And now it's promising to have other features like ambient occlusion and anti-aliasing and high dynamic range rendering, better known as HDR, all those sorts of things. So, in a lot of ways, Final Fantasy 15 was like the encapsulation of the Fabula Nova Crystallis series. It's supposed to showcase this new game engine. And oh yeah, by the way, it's about these dudes just hanging out in a car, going on a road trip, and just talking about their problems. Evil King.
Yeah, so I feel like the listeners might have a question, right? This is part of Fabula Nova Crystallis, right? It's 13. It's versus 13, which is what 15 became. It's Agido 13, which was what Type 0 became. What, if anything, does this game have to do with 13? What makes this a series?
They use the same gods.
Do they?
Kind of.
Do they?
Yeah.
Real loose. Very loosely. There's no, like, in this game, there's no Lacies and Falcies. I think there are Lacies and Falcies in Type 0.
It takes place on an Earth-like planet known as Eos. It's divided between 4 nations, Lucius, Accordo, Tenebrae, and Nilfheim. You might know, if you know a thing or two about history and actual mythology, those are all references to different things in our world that we live in. So one could say, if it's an Earth-like world in an Earth-like universe or solar system, maybe Lightning created the world of Final Fantasy 15. Her sacrifice, Gino.
Yeah.
Anyways,
so
I don't know, man.
There's basically nothing. The long story short, there's almost nothing tying this universe.
Like we've talked about this before. After Lightning Returns in Type 0, they wanted to cut bait, but also this game was so deeply connected to the DNA of 13 that they didn't fully decouple it.
Yeah, the connection here is largely some aesthetics between the worlds a little bit, like how stuff looks, kinda. But otherwise...
you can kind of, like if you really squint and look at it, even though it's much more action-oriented, if one were to play Lightning Returns and then play Final Fantasy 15, I think there's a comparison to say there, like, yes, this actually feels like a continuation of that action-y roleplay combat from Lightning Returns.
A little bit.
15 is better. 15 is better by a lot. 15 is much better.
To play,
but, like,
yes.
When you look at, like, Lightning Returns is, like, notions of an open world with, like, a linear story, like, the progression of Noctis versus Lightning, like, there are some similarities there. Very light. But it's there.
Yeah, it is truly, like, this game has very little overlap with the 13 games. You don't have to play the 13 games. Like, the Fabula Nova Crystallis universes, there's almost no interconnecting tissue to make this a series, other than Square said they're a series. It's not like, you need to play 10 so that you understand 10-2 or something. Like, there's just not that much connecting these two worlds, other than they were announced around the same time, and they claimed that it would be a series.
And this game was 13 versus.
Yes, if they did not call it versus 13, this would have almost nothing to do with 13. So this game, as you said, ZP, it stars Noctis and his retainers / Kingsguard, Gladiolus, Ignis, and Prompto.
We have to bring it up now. The names and the names of every proper noun, the names for the characters, all of them are the worst. Yes. I can't believe that they thought they could get away with naming a character Ignis, and then, they've got blonde hair. Get it? Metaphor. Then Noctis, he's got black hair. So deep.
Gladiolus, he's strong. His chest is out.
But anyways, go on. Like, you gotta get the starting premise of this game.
Yeah, so what I was going to say is, well, one, the names, they give them all of these names and then proceed to give everyone nicknames that are still ridiculous, but less ridiculous than the original names. The setup is Noctis and his boys are on a road trip to get Noctis married. He and Lady Lunafreya, who is an oracle, they are hitched. It's going to form an alliance between Noctis's home country, of Insomnia is the city. What's the name of the country? Do you know what the country is? Insomnia is the city.
It's like I said, it's Lucius, Accordo, Tenebrae, Nilfheim.
Lucius. So Lucius, his country of Lucius is going to ally itself with Tenebrae because Lunafreya is a princess of Tenebrae. He's a prince of Lucius, so he's gonna get hitched. The game, I cannot stress this enough. The game just kind of starts and says, "Hey, Noctis, go marry her," and you're just like put in a car with your boys. Actually, technically it starts with you pushing your broken down car while Florence and the Machine sings "Stand By Me."
I realized that
That's
since
really cool.
Final Fantasy 13, they've decided to stop making their own original music with lyrical music. 13 had that really bad fake Beyonce song at the end of the credits.
You leave Leona Lewis alone.
And then ever since then,
she's a real person.
Ever since they used Leona Lewis, they've used licensed musics when they wanted songs with lyrics rather than make something like Eyes on Me or Melodies of whatever it is. Melodies of
Life.
Love Life. And it's such a discordant decision because it's like, this is the music in my world. How does Florence and the Machine exist in the world of these Final Fantasy weirdos?
Yeah, so I will say I like it. I like the use of Stand By Me. I like the rendition. I pushed the car fast enough that I didn't get the whole song, but I thought that was a cool way to open the game. And then there's also I think there's a flash forward to a fight that's out of context.
This is part of the reason why I think that this game has... I'm going to go ahead and say I think that this start of the game is not the problem. It's the minute that you actually get into the whole, yes, now we have to, do the game part.
Yes.
That's the problem. That's the problem.
The cold open is not the problem.
This cold opening is actually kind of fun. It's like these characters... It is implied that these characters, though they are your characters, they are not these all-powerful, world-destroying beings. They're young.
They're just four dudes.
They're just dudes. They're friends. You even get a sense that they're not even, fully capable, fully comfortable with each other at times. I think that the start of this game is fine.
I do too. It's once so the pushing the car is cool. The flash forward, I mean, it's an in medias res flash forward.
Which this franchise has done before.
Yeah, I don't know what the context is yet. I'm sure I will eventually get the context. But then once they say, okay, Noctis, you're gonna go get married, there's basically no context where you are in the world. You are just put behind the wheel of a car. You drive a little bit, and then you end up at No, I think you just start at Hammerhead, right? Or do you drive to Hammerhead?
And here's the problem there, is they start dropping a lot of proper nouns for locations.
They do.
With no reference in terms of where they exist. You don't even have access to a very good, world map that just shows and displays everything. And on top of that, as if it's not worse, say what you will about Final Fantasy XIII's Codex. At least it was there.
Yeah, there's at the beginning of the game there is a tutorial an optional tutorial you can do, and there's a section where it's do you want to know about the lore and the proper nouns? And you can click on stuff, and if you ask for the lore and the proper nouns, there's only 4 sentences per. There's only a few things that will give you lore, and the lore is there's an oracle, there are gods in this world, the king's got superpowers, these 2 countries are at war. That's kind of it. There's not much context given.
Say what you will about that 13 Codex being way too much, just too much, all the way up dialed to 11, but it's far more useful than what they give you here. And then I guess this is the key problem with this opening is you have a lot of characters saying, I'm from here, I'm from there, we got to go here, and there's no reference. No grounding in terms of where you are, where you're going, or what is this underlying conflict that we need to be aware of.
Yeah, you don't really know what's going on to any extent. You're at Hammerhead, which is a mechanics shop. Your car is just gotten repaired, I guess.
And this is where we see Cindy.
So you have a car. This is kind of an open world game, kind of. It's kind of an Ubisoft open world game. We get introduced to the first gas station where you can refill the car. We get introduced to the first eatery. The eateries are like your towers. If it was an Assassin's Creed game.
What about the mascot? What about the wonderful mascot of the eateries?
Well, this eatery is not affiliated with the Crow's Nest.
Oh, I know.
So, but we will get to the Crow's Nest. Don't you worry. So the eateries can give you quests. You can eat food there. Food gives you buffs. And then you also have the ability to talk to people, and they will mark stuff on your map as though it was like an Ubisoft game and you climbed a tower. So your first set of quests that you're going to get are mostly from Cindy, who is the granddaughter of Sid. ZP, how would you describe Cindy's attire? Cindy the mechanic's attire?
She wears hot pants where her booty ass is literally hanging out at the bottoms of them, and she's got a yellow jumper where she seems to have cut out the bottom part so as that her midriff is constantly showing. And then she's got her bra sticking out of her coat.
Yeah, so she
conveniently leans forward a lot.
Yeah, so she's unzipped the front of her little jacket. It is a crop top, so her midriff is always out. As you said, her hot pants are askew because you see she's got a utility belt with tools in it. So her thong is sticking out on one side. She's the mechanic that fixes your car. So if you gas up your car at that gas station, she will be the person who puts the gas in, and then afterwards she will clean your car by leaning over it at the camera. She's barely a character. She gives you a quest line. ZP, almost every character in this game is just a quest giver.
Yeah, I mean, even the core dudes each have their own quests that pop off if you talk to them enough, right? So, it's almost like everyone's an object.
But at least those sometimes relate to, hey, Prompto likes taking pictures. Here's a quest to go take a picture. Or Ignis wants to cook something. Go help him cook.
So
Cindy's is always like, go find a thing in the ruins so I can fix your car better.
And here's the weird thing. Cindy becomes a complete non-factor after Act 2. To a certain point, Cindy just becomes this complete afterthought. So the idea, it's almost like when GTA games put women characters on the covers of their box art that are literally in just one mission and then don't exist outside of that one mission. It's like Cindy's kind of that. Now the backstory is, what if I told you that Square Enix, this studio that you may have heard of, deliberately hired a guy named Roberto Ferrari to make character designs more appealing to Western audiences, but they clearly liked his style for another reason. And Cindy was one of the character arts that he presented in his portfolio to Nomura. And there are still works on his DeviantArt account, which has been largely purged, but you can learn some things about his preferences. He made a lot of, let's just say, fan art of old school mecha characters and women who are in upskirt shots. And now he's the lead artist. He's basically now the lead artist at Square, essentially replacing Nomura in the art position in a lot of games now.
Yeah, so Cindy, very horny character design. She is the granddaughter of this game's Sid. The Sid in this game is friends with Noctis's dad. He references it. Doesn't really talk about Noctis's dad very much. Doesn't really talk to you very much.
Which is kind of the start of this thing that I think Jeff and I were planning to bring up perpetually. You get a lot of characters that say, yeah, well, we can talk about this character. Moving on.
Yep.
And what that character looks like, especially, a certain person's dad, who's the king of a kingdom, until you get later in the game, the only image that you have of that person is if you played the spin-off game or played this game or saw this movie.
Yeah, so Sid barely tells you anything about your dad. Cindy is just kind of a quest giver, though it seems like Prompto has the hots for her because he's I mean, he's just kind of the worst character. I hate him so much.
I will say there's a lot. There's too much game. This is too much of a video game is my core problem with Final Fantasy 15. It's too much video game. However, during these opening hours, it's just enough to where it feels like an Assassin's Creed game where it's like, okay, there's one environment basically here. There's one place for me to start quests. I'm just getting the kind of the grounding of what each of these other dudes in my party are going to add to the experience. And then, oh yeah, I'm going to do Cindy because she's like the first of like 2 or 3 people who are giving me things to do. It's okay. It's not perfect.
I mean,
it's okay.
It's very video gamey. It's like, I'm going to get quests from the quest givers. I'm going to get hunts, which is go kill X things and then come back and we'll pay you out. Almost all of the quests are go to this place, pick up an item, bring it back.
It feels very much like the hunt system in Final Fantasy 12.
It does, but it's all of the quests are fetch quests or go kill 3 things. Like there's no mystery. There's no more novel quest designs like, hey, go talk to these people, learn about the world. It's all kill 12 rats and then come back, or go pick up an item in the middle of the wilderness, go pick up 5 frogs and then come back. They all feel like they are game design 101 quests, and it just goes, I'm 26 hours into this game. I don't think outside of a handful of dungeons I've encountered a quest line that is more than what you'd expect from like an MMO quest giver in a town.
And here's, again, my problem is not necessarily the design. My problem is there's so many of them. There's so many.
You can ignore most of them because they're all bad.
But there's so much stuff. Like, they filled this up. Like, even the Assassin's Creed franchise, which I think has been raked over the coals for, like, this exact sin of game design. I feel like even in the Assassin's Creed game, at least I'm getting something that feels worthwhile, whether it's cool things to unlock in these ecosystems. And we'll talk about it later. Like, what do you really truly get? You get more things to cook in the cooking minigame. But
yeah, and we'll talk
some of the
about
rewards don't feel connected with the weird gameplay loops that are here.
Yeah, you get a lot of it, you just get money, or you get like one of yet another million consumables that you have. You'll get experience, and you cash in experience. Like, you get experience, and then you cash it in by resting. And we'll go over that system in a little bit. But I shouldn't have said that the quests are bad. I should say that the quests are all very basic, and they're very repetitive. If you've played one of a quest in a given quest line, you've played all of them. Like, Cindy always tells you to go someplace and find an old car part, which is always, go to the waypoint. Go to where the waypoint says. It'll then draw kind of a radius around where the item is. Go find it. Bring it back to her. And to get to all of these quests, you're driving the car. You can fast travel once you start, venturing out to multiple locations. But the first time you go to a place, you have to drive there, which getting from one side of the map to the other is like 8 minutes. So you're just spending a lot of time watching the game drive itself, or you can try driving the car. But if you try driving the car, at least in the early game, it's on rails, basically. You're just holding the drive button, and then you occasionally can wiggle the stick to go drive in the wrong lane or make a turn. It doesn't let you get off the road. It doesn't let you accelerate, really. It just hits a top speed and then stops. You can't do anything fun with the car. It's not like you can drift or anything. This is the worst car driving in a game like this. It's not like it's Saints Row or GTA or something. I'm just saying, like, it's not like it's fun to drive.
I don't like the driving in GTA. I think that most open world games that are made by teams that don't make driving games are bad. I don't like driving in most open world games. Period. I think they're mostly bad.
I think it's mostly bad, but in this one, it's bad and slow,
well,
and it takes up so much of the game.
Like, not to do a complete defense of GTA, but at least you're exploring these settings that feel like these lived-in sandboxes that, are furthering a goal here. At this point, when the game does this initial kind of like mini open-world sandbox, You don't know where you are. You don't know why you need to do this other than, hey, we got to do this wedding thing. You're just getting your feet wet with these mechanics, which we need to talk about. The tutorial in this game is not great.
No.
It is a recurring problem in the Final Fantasy franchise, I give you. And I don't think that this is a game that is easy to communicate without just getting your feet wet and then just jumping into the fire and like figuring things out the good old-fashioned way. Yeah, it's kind of shocking that everything that they did with all of this media, all of this preamble to 15, about how this world would be bigger and grander and more epic, like how contextless the start, like the first 10 hours of this game feel.
Yeah, you're basically just driving around from like a point to do a thing that you don't fully understand at a location that you don't have any context for. Most of the places in between those are like diners, and the diners will have quest givers in them, but most of the people don't really give context to the world. They're just doing their own little quest lines. So even the quest givers don't really give you a sense of the larger world. Like there's a hunter who's like, I collect dog tags because hunters that kill monsters, they die sometimes, and their families need to know that they died. So can you go find me a dog tag in the middle of the wilderness? And it's like, oh, are you going to tell me anything about why do hunters exist? Like, what's going on with this world? No, it's just like, go find dog tags. There are monsters. Hey, what's the story of this part of the country? You know, we're in this place. We're moving from place to place as we're getting different quests. Are you going to tell me about the new town? No, it's just a diner? Okay, cool. Fine. I guess I'll do the quest. And then, you know, all of these quests are centered around the combat and the navigation. We've kind of talked about the car. Let's talk about the combat. ZP, how does this action game's combat work?
It's basically,
how do you attack things?
It's basically an action-based real-time battle system. This is a MMO combat. Like the easiest way that I can say this is like you have, instead of using like a menu interface, you just select commands directly mapped to buttons, or in my case, the keyboard. Because bitches, I'm playing this with mouse and keyboard. You can't stop me. It's actually not that bad in this game, because you really only have 3 things that you can input. It's attack at this point: attack, defend, and item. And battles take place like within the current environment, which I think is cool. They just pop off. There's no like transition to a battle thing. It seems like if this was like, how do I draw a comparison? It seems like a weird middle ground between like Final Fantasy 12 and Final Fantasy Lightning Returns.
Yes, that's kind of, but I will say like it's trying to be an action game. Much more than the previous Final Fantasies. Like, the series since 13 has been moving in this direction. 12 was like this weird spoke into MMO land. This game, I feel like, is trying to be a Devil May Cry or something. It's you're warping around, you're throwing your sword, and, you know, when you hit triangle, Noctis will throw his sword, and then he'll warp to it, and then, you know, get a big hit. Those games, you will hit buttons. Usually there's like a heavy and a light, and hitting them in certain combinations will do different sorts of moves. In this game, and there's also a lock-on. Like you hit the button to lock on, and it locks on.
There is like, it's Z targeting.
There's
there's a lock-on. And also, there's a threat meter that appears on the top of the screen that grows in intensity as you get closer to enemies. And this is both helpful and kind of disruptive or discordant, because it's like you'll be walking, it's like, oh shit, the threat meter popped off. Where is this thing? Where is it? Oh, it's over there? Okay, I guess I'm just gonna walk away.
But
and then the threat meter disappears.
I mean, the thing that I'm getting at with the targeting is like, there's a lock-on in most games of this ilk. You press a button, it locks on. You press it again, it unlocks. In this one, if you're playing on a controller, the right bumper locks on, and you need to hold it down. If you let go, it will stop locking on. It's
the same thing on PC, man. There's a mod, luckily for PC, where it's just a trigger where you just tap it and it stays there. But yeah,
I mean, you're holding it down, and then to attack, it is not like there's a heavy and light button and you need to press. You just hold down circle, and Noctis will just auto attack. He's just going to auto attack whatever you've locked onto. If you hold down square, that is your defend button, if you're on a PlayStation controller. Noctis will just auto dodge anything that comes at him as long as you're holding down square.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, in games like this, you're looking mostly for, like, a parry system or something that makes the timing significant. As long as, like, there will be opportunities where it says, like, hold the square button so that you can parry. As long as you're holding it down, there's no timing that matters. You just hold it down until the attack comes out. You'll get the parry prompt, and then you can press circle to parry. So all of the tension that is usually wrapped up in this sort of combat, or the rhythm, you know, the feel of pressing the buttons at the right time to get the right moves out, all of that is removed from this game.
You're also forgetting another thing that I think lowers the stakes rather significantly is the way that health works, like the HP system in this game, which is, I don't want to say that it's bad, but it might be the most generous HP system I've ever seen in an RPG. So if a character's HP reaches 0, they're actually not dead. They reach the danger zone or danger mode. During which the maximum HP steadily decreases, and the character is only truly defeated when all of their maximum HP is lost. So you basically have like an Halo's Overshield, but RPG. The RPG version of that, which is interesting. I think that the consequence is that it makes it... I don't know, Gino, how many times did you die in your 20 plus hours? I mean, unless you're deliberately going out of your way to play some of the harder side quests, but like...
I died once because I stumbled across the wrong thing, and I didn't know
which is
how
a real
to use
thing that
Phoenix
can happen.
Downs. I didn't realize... So, like, when you take lethal damage with your character, with Noctis... you can just use a Phoenix down when he's at 0. Yeah. You have like a 5-10 second window to use the Phoenix down. Otherwise, you get a game over. I didn't realize that if I just open up the item menu, I could have used a Phoenix down and saved myself. But like you said, if someone gets in the danger zone, they can just pop off a potion. And, you know, it's just a menu thing. It's not like you have to go over and help them. You can go over and, like, help them. But if you just open up the menu and say potion yourself, they'll be stabilized. There are elixirs that will restore your maximum health back to full. So even that, like you said, your maximum health goes down slowly as you get put into critical health. You can just restore that with elixirs, and elixirs are not expensive. Phoenix Downs also are very plentiful, and you can just use those when your characters get knocked out. So... you really can just slog through any battle in this game just by healing yourself through it. Just, like, use healing items, get through it. There's almost no tension to the combat.
Yeah. Another thing. We have to talk about the fact that Noctis basically only has 4 things he can do in battle. You can do a standard attack, you can defend, which blocks and parries attacks. Having block and parry basically be the same button prompt, it's easy. But it also means that there's a lot less strategy. Like, going from, let's say, I don't know, Final Fantasy Origins parry and block system to this game, I can't imagine how this feels better than that. Gino, as someone who started with Final Fantasy Origin is now coming to this, it's not great. It's not a great system. It's easy.
I mean, this game's very easy. It's like you can just tool around and the numbers will go up. The leveling system is kind of a sphere grid situation. And like the things you need to unlock are abilities for your characters, stat buffs. There's unlocks that unlock better, like, I forget what the term for it is, like exploration abilities.
Yeah. So
like you get experience and AP. AP is your ability points for unlocking stuff on the Crystarium sphere grid equivalent, and then experience is what levels you up. So like you want to go and unlock those exploration things first because you're going to be doing a lot of riding around in the car, you're going to be doing a lot of running around on a chocobo, and you want to get AP when you're doing that stuff that isn't combat. So like, yeah, you're not in jeopardy in most battles. You're holding the circle button to attack. You can lock onto a thing and then throw your sword. Noctis can have up to 4 weapons equipped at a time, and he can like
which
switch
is cool.
Between them.
Like it's a cool, quick, snappy system.
It is, but at least in my version, I'm playing the Royal version. They give you some weapons to start with. One of them is the Ragnarok, which increases the damage of your warp strikes, and that is the only weapon I want to use because it makes my warp strikes do max damage a lot.
I will say this to like talk positively about this game because I don't hate this game.
I don't either.
Man, the warping system is actually kind of cool, and it
It
seems
looks
to
cool
be.
when you do it.
It looks cool when you do it. It does lead to a lot of weird flippy shit where you're just flipping in the air, whipping back and forth. But using the warp to take Noctis to a targeted area, such as like to another enemy, so as that you're not just like running over there, is a cool thing. But yeah,
like when you throw his sword into a wall or something, and then he hangs there, so you can kind of survey the area. That's kind of cool. It's just that there's not a lot of when you're not using the warp, because the warp is or the abilities. Like you also get abilities. You can tell Gladio, Ignis, and Prompto to use abilities and that'll build up as combat goes on. It's kind of like Final Fantasy VII remake. You know, you've got this bar that's filling up, this ability juice bar, and then you can pay it down by having characters use special moves. When you're not using those, you're just kind of holding circle or square if you're going to get attacked, and you're just kind of like mushing up against the enemies as Noctis attacks them. Or you can equip a gun and shoot from a distance, but it doesn't feel very good.
No, I mean, like I said, you're stuck to basically doing standard attack, defend, block and parries, warp, and then just items. Like it's a very simple system, even though the end result is a lot of flashy, flippy combat, right?
Yes, the everything looks like it should be more fun than it is to control. But I will say it's a very smooth experience. You can just the game will keep playing itself. You can hold down the circle button. You'll be able to do these quests. This is a solid podcast game, I found.
Yeah, because there's so much extra stuff you'll be doing in between the story bits, and
Yeah,
I would say
got a
that
bunch of quests.
the story doesn't really kick in until like the 25, 30-hour mark.
Yeah, I will say I'm 26 hours in, and I don't feel like much story has happened.
The other thing that I kind of liked in this is if you to incentivize you to use that warp ability to get to the sides of characters or enemies that you're fighting, there is like a side attack or blindside bonus system, in addition to like the warp strike attacks.
Yeah, you want to be attacking from behind, and if you attack something from behind and an ally's near you, you'll do a team-up attack. But you're not really controlling when it happens.
Well,
Like,
the problem
that
with
much?
that is you only control Noctis. Like, this is something that we also kind of need to talk about, is like Noctis's companions are controlled by the game's artificial intelligence.
Well, you can unlock the ability to control them manually. It's just in the sphere grid.
Yeah.
It's in the Crystarium.
It's in the pseudo Crystarium, which I guess is another connection to Final Fantasy 13. But for
It's just a skill tree.
for a good portion of this game, you're basically beholden to the AI controlling these characters that are not Noctis.
Mm-hmm.
And I've talked to people who have played Final Fantasy 15 and even liked Final Fantasy 15. They're like, yeah, no, I don't interact with that. I'm here to do the Noctis stuff. And they're just not invested, which I don't blame them, because getting those manual controls and utilizing those controls is not a fun process. It, in fact, reminds me a lot of like Final Fantasy 12's like Boolean modifiers. But yeah, it's very simple combat system
That you're going to do a lot.
that you're going to do a lot. And then there's the magic system.
Which, yeah, you craft your magic. You pull magic juice out of points in the world. It's like
Which is
draw
cool.
points, like innate.
Yeah, it's cool.
Kinda.
There's the Elemency versus Arcana magic systems. Elemency is broken down into fire, ice, and lightning. Arcana is accessed when like Noctis has required and equipped a story-related item.
I don't have that yet, so
So you're going to get a second school of magic. I'll just kind of mini spoiler it, but that's where you get the actual cool abilities. There are summons.
well, we can go over the summons when we get to the story part.
When we
with the
get to
summons.
that.
Yeah. So like the Elemancy, you do not need to interact with this mechanic either. You can make spell flasks to throw at enemies. You usually want to use a catalyst, so it's like put magic juice plus an item to make your spell. So you can, if you just use the magic, it'll just be like fire. But then if you use like the elemental juice and then an elixir, it might be like quad fire. It casts fire 4 times. I don't know. I didn't really interact with it that much. I haven't had much trouble despite not really interacting with magic.
Well, it's I'm going to make a comparison that's complete hyperbole because this game is better than this. It reminds me of God, I can't believe I'm going to do this. Jade Empire, where there is rock, paper, scissors. There is fire, ice, lightning that have these different polarities. However, when you have a fourth thing, which is just punch things in the face until they're dead, the level of investment that you have in this magic system is muted as a result. Because, like you said, you don't need to invest in magic. Yes, certain enemies will be easier to beat if you fight them using special spells or pop them off during opportune moments. But when you can just kill rock and paper with scissors by just smashing them over the face.
Yeah, when you can stab rock to death with scissors, it really doesn't. Why invest with that? And like we said earlier, any encounter you want to really beat, you can get 99 potions very easily. And if you do, 99 potions and 99 Phoenix Downs, you're not going to die. There's not going to be a super move that wipes out your whole party and, oh, dang, you should have prepared better, or, oh, you were super underleveled. You always get a window to revive everyone. So there's not really that much tension. So why invest in the magic or really anything? I found I started doing some of the dungeons that are kind of higher level content, at least for my current part of the game. And I would get up to bosses and I was like, oh, this is kind of challenging. I wonder if there's a mechanical thing I need to learn here. And instead of learning that, because I didn't really see a great communication of the better way to play, I know that there's a scan system, and there might be maybe I could have saved and brought the right spells to win the battle. But I could also just use potions until I could use the moves that had invincibility, and then I could use potions whenever I took damage, and that has worked on every single encounter. So, you've got one tool that solves every problem. There's really not much reason to interact with this stuff. It's a cool concept, I think, the magic, but it's really undercut by how powerful the other stuff is.
There will be bosses that are noticeably easier if you use magic, but like I said, part of the reason why the elemental system at the start doesn't feel worth it is because the real meat and potatoes, the Arcana magic, is yet to be unlocked based off of what we have played. And then plus, as we've kind of hinted, we'll get it during the story, the summons are here as kind of they stand in for worthwhile magic.
Yeah, we'll go over that in a bit. There's also a fishing minigame that Noctis
There's
does.
So many minigames in this title. There's a lot of minigames.
Yeah, there's you can cook. So like I said, you gain experience when you walk around and you do combat and stuff. You turn it in when you rest. If you rest, and this is maybe one of the worst mistakes that this game makes, if you rest at a hotel, at an RV, so if you camp, you get 1 times your experience. So you get exactly as much experience as you have. If you rest at a RV, you get 1.2%, or 1.2 times the experience. So you get a bonus. If you stay at a hotel, you get 1.5 times as much experience. If you stay at a very nice resort, you get 2 times as much experience. And it costs more to stay at the resort versus the motel versus the RV, and camping is free. But camping is the only way you use Ignis's cooking, which is his thing. Every character has their own thing. Gladio is a survivalist, so he'll just find items after battles. Noctis likes to fish. Prompto takes pictures. Ignis cooks. If you want to interact with the cooking system, you have to camp, which means you are just getting less experience than if you just went to a hotel, and the hotels are very plentiful. And the game steers you to hotels whenever you're outside after dark, basically. The game's like, hey, wouldn't it be nice if we went to town? And then it'll fast travel you to a town where you get more experience. There are scenes, story-related scenes that you get from camping the cooking system is interactable when you camp. I think there's like training systems, there's stuff you can do at camp that you can't do anywhere else. This feels like malpractice to me. Am I wrong? It steers you to not do the thing that they put all this time into.
So I just want to add a couple of things. That's never really been the thing that I've always disliked, just because, like, hey, it's not actually that hard to level up in this game and get experience. But here's some of the things that I disliked in it. So if you are defeated in a battle, you lose all experience gained up to that point since the last level up, and it's just permanently lost. You lose everything. So when we get to some of these harder boss encounters, just consider that. You lose all of your progress up to your last level. Activities in the overworld earn AP points also, and that's spent on the Ascension grid, which is the game's leveling system. It's basically the Crystarium. So the cooking mechanic, yes. This whole resting system does require you to engage with the camping system, but at the same time, it's not that deep, guys. Like it's just like that little bonus is not that big of a deal.
It's not, and that's the thing, is like you can just eat at a diner and you'll get sometimes lesser buffs, or you'll get less variety of buffs, but you can just get more experience and still get the buffs as opposed to camping. And it's just a game design thing, right? It's like they are steering you away from the thing that has the story and has other mechanics in it. You can do it if you want to, but I don't see a compelling reason for this game that is light on story to begin with to give you any reasons not to camp or to not stay at the places that give you story. So it's odd to me that they put this inherent tension between cooking, which is like one of your character's whole things, right? Like Prompto just takes pictures. You don't have to do anything to get Prompto to level up his picture taking. Yeah. Gladio, if you do combat, he will find stuff out in the wilderness and he'll level up. It's Ignis and Noctis who require you to go out of your way to engage with their little personality quirk. And Noctis, at least, like, there's a fishing minigame that's kind of fun. The Ignis stuff is just not, it's very easy for you to follow the game's incentive structure to never interact with Ignis' stuff, or to interact with it very rarely. It's that, and then also like the fishing ability does not improve as quickly as I would like. And it's tied, like, Noctis' fishing ability, there are specific places, and at the start of the first half of this game, there are just not enough places dispersed in the world to where it's like, I guess I'm kind of close to this next place, and there's kind of a place for me to fish, but it's like everything is spread out, which leads to what I think is the biggest problem with the starting world, which is everything is too far away from where they are. Everything is just stretched, and you're constantly using this car, and just leads to this dead time where nothing is happening. And I think that's kind of like the bigger issue, to not just it's like, oh, I got to use the campsites to cook. It's like everything is just too stretched apart, and it's like, oh, I'm going to just, what constantly happens whenever I play Final Fantasy 15 is I'll pick up a quest from Cindy, right? Mm-hmm. It says, go over here, pick up some stuff, then bring them back to me. It's like, great. I'm going to put up a waypoint, which, the marking and iconography in this game is okay. It's okay. It's not terrible. It's just there's too much of it. And then as I'm driving in my car with my bros and I turn on some music and I'm listening and, some like audio's playing up. Oh, hey, there's a little monster here and I need to get that because that ties into a different thing. Okay, guys, get back in the car. Oh, wait, there's this fishing spot over there. That's closer than the one that I was thinking of doing after the mission with Cindy. So I'll go over there, fish there. Okay, come back here. Oh, hey, there's a campsite. Well, let's go to the campsite because it's like the halfway point, and then I got to pop off my dude here. And, oh, hey, this is another thing that's tied over there. And then just like this simple process of going from point A to point B, just different things just pop off. And the reason why you kind of need to have, like, roll with it is because there's no natural progression
with the main story, right? Like, you're
Yeah,
not
I mean, it's
helping Ignis's progression with his cooking mechanic through the main story. You're not progressing Noctis's ability system through the story. You have to go out of your way to do all these mechanics. And it's fine with Gladiolus because it's just the distance the party has traveled in a day. I would like it if everyone had a simple system like that where I'm just explore.
Yeah, and it's worth saying the stuff you level up doesn't matter that much. Like, when you level up Ignis's cooking, you just get more recipes. When you level up Noctis's fishing, he gets better at fishing. If you don't care about fishing, like, fishing just gets you fish that you then cook. If you don't care about cooking and you don't care about fishing, you can ignore those. The photography, it just unlocks, like, filters. So if you want to post your Final Fantasy 15 photos on social media or whatever, like, that unlocks. Gladio is the only one whose ability matters for gameplay reasons. He will find better items. And I guess technically the recipes that Ignis unlocks are also gameplay relevant if you cook them. But again, if you're not interacting with the cooking system, then it doesn't really matter if he gets new recipes. So that's the thing, is this is all, there's just a lot of distractions, right?
Yeah.
This is a game
an
about
overwhelming amount of distractions where it's like, I know for a fact that what I need to do is go from point A to point B and be done. This is what I need to do. But then, oh, hey, what if we stop to play baseball? Oh, hey, what if we stop to do fishing? Oh, hey, what if we stop to cook? Oh, hey, what if we stop to collect some flowers for the girl that we met at the place over there? Oh, hey, what if we did this? And then it's such a Grognar Cro-Magnon man simple game that it doesn't need this much. It really also doesn't deserve this much.
It just doesn't do much with it. Like, it's got a million distractions. It's like an Ubisoft game. It's like an open world, a very generic open world game. It's like Crackdown or, one of those games. There's just a million quests. You can do what you want. You can run around. And it would be one thing if, I don't know, I felt like I was getting more, like, this is RPG. And the action combat isn't that tight. So I would really like it if I was feeling like I was getting more out of these characters, other than I'm simply spending time with them, right? I don't feel like I'm learning that much about Ignis or Prompto or Gladio. It feels like I am just riding around with these three random dudes, and they're making small talk all the time. Prompto I've had one scene where Prompto talks about his own insecurities. Other than that, it's all just like Gladio going, "Hey bro, you gotta lift." Or Iggy being like, "Oh, you're so unkept, I'll need to clean your clothes." Or Prompto being like, "Hey guys, I'm the fun one. Woo! Finger guns." There are, like, there's no depth to these characters right now. And like we said when we talked about Brotherhood, all of these Brotherhood was supposed to give us, like, the context of these characters, but really it's just three dudes who are pledged fealty to Noctis, the world's most boring man, who have to roll around with him because they have to, because he's the prince. I don't feel like I know these characters, and we're 26 hours into this game, for me, at least. I'm at, like, midpoint of Chapter 6, and we'll go over the story a little bit more right after this, but I just don't feel like I know very much about these guys other than their annoying character tics or their, base level, surface level character tics. And I don't know when I'm supposed to start caring about them or the world, or if I ever am supposed to, but I just don't get it yet. I just think I enjoy it in, like, a lizard brain sort of, the bars go up and the stats go up. And I'm listening to a podcast, and I can listen to a podcast and do a thing that's technically progress if I play this game. But it's not clicking yet. There's just a bunch of distractions. There's not a lot of meat here. Even the exploration, like, I want to know how much time I've spent just sitting in the car while the car drives itself. I bet it's an hour or more of this game. And it's cool that they let you unlock the soundtracks of, like, earlier Final Fantasy games. That's kind of cool that you can listen to them in the car. But you know what's even better? If I could just, like, do stuff instead of watching the car drive while listening to Man with the Machine Gun.
If we had more of, like, a BioWare character progression system of, like, they were, like, character missions that lead to things, like progression with these characters, rather than just these passive systems that you have to exist, that you either have to, these passive or active systems that you have to engage with that just give me weird trinkets that ultimately don't feel all that worthwhile.
Yep.
And then on top of that, to make matters worse, it's not like doing all of these side quests helps you learn more about these nations that are at war, or like the ecosystem of these, like the fauna, like, or even anything about this planet and like what is happening. Like,
no, the quest givers are like, here's a guy who wants me to pick up his spices. Here's a guy who wants me to go to his farm and pull an onion for him. The chocobo guy wants me to help a chocobo. And there's like some cool moments. Like I fought a behemoth that was like a bespoke behemoth, and there were like some cutscenes around this behemoth that was eating chocobos, and that fight was kind of cool. But the sense of cohesion of the world, it's very clear this game was made over the course of 10 years and changed a bunch of hands. Like it's very clear that they, at multiple times probably in this process, thought, oh crap, video games are changing. What's new and hot? And they feel like they are behind on all of it. Like, it feels like an action game where they haven't played an action game and didn't know how they wanted it to play. It feels like it's an open world game, but they couldn't quite nail the open world because their asset pipeline was too crazy. Like, it's a mess, but there's some enjoyable parts. Like, the combat is fine. The bars go up. You see the progression. These characters talk. They banter sometimes, and it can be kind of funny sometimes what they're saying. Let's turn our attention now to the story. You start by going to Golden Key.
It's going to take like 10 minutes.
Yeah, you go to Golden Key. It's a resort town. You're supposed to catch a ferry. The ferry is stopped. You talk to Dino, who's a reporter and a jeweler and an Italian stereotype who says forget about it. The game tells you
it's okay. Roberto Ferrari is Italian.
Yeah, yes, Space Italy is in this game. So Dino, you work with him. He tries to get you on a ship, but not before he extorts you to help him because, forget about it. He's a New York Italian. He's just a dirtbag. And then all the characters talk about what a dirtbag he is, which is great. I really enjoy the person who sounds the most like people I know being treated like the way he talks and how he acts means he's a dirtbag. It's really cool for me personally. That's not for everyone, but shorthand for like this guy's pushy and an asshole speaks like a New York Italian. Super cool. So yeah, that's it. And I say it's shorthand because they don't give him a character arc. It's supposed to be like he's just a jerk who kind of extorts you. So like very cool that they use that shorthand. You get to Golden Key. You're supposed to catch a ferry. The ferry gets stopped. You don't catch the ferry. Then you go drive around, I think, for a bit. You drive back. You find out that the events of Kingsglaive happened while you were gone, and then there's like a cutscene that just has like audio playing underneath it, and it shows scenes from Kingsglaive happening.
And they're black and white.
They were color in my version.
Oh, so they fixed that part because in the original version they were black and white. But they're muted. They don't actually play the actual dialogue.
Yeah, there's no dialogue. There's music underneath, but there's no dialogue.
It's maybe the weirdest, if not the dumbest creative decision that they made in this game. These are these big, epic, important cutscenes that are meant to just tell you who these characters are, the world that they occupy. What conflicts are they dealing with? And they play these muted, completely contextless cutscenes
that show you scenes from a movie that you could have watched, and all that you get from it is that Noctis's hometown, if you know what it looks like, because you might not, because you don't spend any time there really. You know that it's getting attacked. You know that his dad is dead, and that's kind of it. You get a flashback at 1.2 of like Luna Freya. You get a cut to with Luna Freya, and she doesn't talk.
Yeah, so here's the source for this big romantic marriage that we're really wanting you. The game is really wanting you to believe is important, and she's barely a character. She isn't a character.
Yeah, you get there's a dog who like brings Noctis a letter, and you can reply to Luna Freya, and you can like pick what Noctis writes, and then you see a cutscene where the dog gets to Luna Freya, and it's completely wordless, and Luna Freya is just like, oh, he wrote back. She doesn't say that. It's just kind of implied that she cared about what you wrote. It's ridiculous. There's just not a lot there. You get back to the town, you fight some enemies. You see that Noctis' hometown is destroyed. He's been declared dead. Luna Freya is declared dead. His dad is actually dead. And now you're kind of derailed. Instead of going to get married, you are going to this other town that and in Golden Key you run into this dude named Arden, who's got like 7 different fabrics on him, but he's like, I'm no one important, don't worry about me. So then you go to this other town, which is by a meteor,
Mm-hmm.
and it's got like a power system by the meteor. And I think, at that town you start getting...
And then,
like,
something that I think we brought up before, but like if your reference point is the one movie that they made and you're just now jumping into this game, Luna Freya doesn't look like the version that you're used to. Like,
No.
They completely changed her character. This character doesn't even remotely look like what you bought into. Like, it's not the same person at all. Like, it's... I mean, yeah, it's like, this leads to my common complaint in terms of just the structure of this game and the structure of its story, which is it tries to convince you at times that this is a deeper story, that these are characters, that there's this master plan that it's trying to work with. And it really isn't. It's just this shotgunned story that honestly feels cobbled together.
Yeah, very much so. I think it's Lestalem is the next town you go to. Yeah, it's like a fake Middle East sort of town. And all of the ladies there they're wearing like, man, their outfits. I guess all the women work at a power plant, and so they all have uniforms which are like they're like chaps, like crotchless chaps kinda. And they're all wearing short shorts underneath them and bras. It's a look. You go there and you find out that Iris, Gladio's sister's alive, that stuff went bad. The country of Nibelheim, or Niflheim, killed your dad, and they took over your country, and you're the only people left, and you need to go to the next quest location so that you can progress the story. You basically find out that you need to go see Titan, which is a summon in this world. The summons are like these giant beings, and apparently the summon Titan the god Titan has been holding up this meteor that crashed down years ago, like for like 100 years or something. Titan's just been holding up this meteor, and so you have to go there. You go with Arden, he's the guy who's like, I'm not an important person. You drive with him, and you go see Titan. You fight him. It's a really cool fight. We didn't say there are random battles in this game where just like the enemy soldiers, after they take over Insomnia, they will just like fly up over you and then just drop dudes. So if you spend too long in any one location, just enemies will be deployed on top of your head, which is super fun for the fetch quests. Like if you're having trouble finding something, enemies will just deploy right on your head, so you have to fight them so you can continue your quest. It's really cool. Yeah, so you fight Titan. It's like a big fight. It's kind of cool. Gladio's
I think that the overall the boss battles in this game are actually genuinely visually impressive, and some of them require you to use more complex strategies and techniques that are quite good, are a lot of fun to engage with.
Yeah, Titan's cool. That fight is cool. Beating him.
I wish that maybe that something that you get the sense that this game was really important to the team in terms of like taking lessons here and then eventually learning from those lessons when they were making Final Fantasy VII Remake.
Yes.
Because not only is the combat from Final Fantasy VII Remake generously borrowing from this game, but they really pulled all the right lessons that one could pull from Final Fantasy 15 before when they were making 7. Like the side quests there have actual combat scenarios and encounters in 7 Remake that feel worthwhile and like a good climax. Whereas these, you pick the thing up and then you deliver and you get a trinket. And then there's more variety to the mini games. Like I know that Gino, you were always a fan of the Fort Condor stuff, even though I wasn't in 7 Remake. But there's something different.
Yeah, and it in that game, the quests, like the quest givers, at least have their own stuff going on beyond just being quest givers. In 15, not so much. They're usually just quest givers. They don't have that much interesting to say beyond giving you quests. So you get Titan. Once you beat Titan, he joins you as a summon. Oh, before this, sorry, I forgot. You do get the Royal Armature before this. You meet Kor, who is like your dad's right hand. He's like the best soldier in your army. He joins you for like 5 minutes while you get 2 Royal Armatures. They are weapons that are buried with kings, like previous kings. And that unlocks the armature system, which is you can hold the 2 bumpers and you will just pop off like these special weapons. And it's just like a super mode. You're super powered for a bit while you're doing this. So like that starts, you get the summons. How do summons work, ZP?
You click the button.
Yeah, you hold the summon button when things are going bad, and then the summon shows up and just kills all your enemies.
Yeah. That's it. I mean,
the animation's different depending on which summon helps you.
There's almost like a Final Fantasy. There's like the classic Final Fantasy sensibility to it, where it's like, the summons are here to be like fun little tech demos, and then all the stuff is gone.
So like whatever tension there was in the combat,
there's even more tools for you to just wipe everything off from the screen.
Exactly. Like I would do hunts that were way over my level, and I'd be like, oh, well, if I can't kill them, Titan will, or Ramu will, and I just need to survive long enough for the summon to be like, I take pity on you. So yeah, that even more of a reason to maybe not engage with the combat super hard. Yeah, so, and also they don't really tell you how the summons decide to help you. Each summon has different triggers and different locations where it will show up. But for the most part, if you're low on HP and you've been low on HP for a while, a summon will show up. And I don't know if there's a limit on how many you can summon a day or something, but I never hit that limit because I rested. So, I rested when the day was over, so I never hit a limit if there was one. After you get Titan, you get told to get Ramu. What's her name? Gentiana shows up. She's like a ghost lady. She's like Luna Freya's messenger.
I do appreciate the fact that the summons are baked into progressing the story. I mean, it feels like something that could have been completely optional, and some of these summons will be optional, but it's just another tool. It's another, like, when you consider the fact that this game's combat system is all about style over substance, it's just more of that. And it's more of the flippy stuff, or as we say in the wrestling business, flippy shit. That's what it is. It's all pizzazz, no substance.
Yeah,
and
like you get the summons. They are cool when you use them. It's hard to complain about them. Like they're pure value. They're pure upside. It's just having an I win button that shows up every once in a while. It's maybe not like the most compelling. It's a binary choice. Do you want to win this battle? If yes, summon. If you don't want to see the animation because you can kill the enemy faster than that with physical attacks, don't summon. That's kind of it.
Yeah. I mean,
we didn't say earlier, but Arden reveals himself after you beat Titan to be like the leader of the country that invaded your country.
Yeah, he's a bad dude.
And they take your car, and then you have to go get the car back by taking down a base. There's like a stealth section, kinda, but you don't really need to go stealth because the enemies are so weak. You can just kill them normally. So
I would say that dungeon, if you play it legitimately, is terrible. like just actively bad. There are some bad dungeons in this game that I personally just continually think about as not being my favorite, and we have not even played the one that I think is the worst part of this game. But yeah, it's very weird when this game presents a scenario to you. It's like, oh, we got to maintain a low profile, and it's the classic problem that I have with a lot of games that are not meant to be stealth games. It's like, you're making me do stealth. This is an engine that's not meant for stealth. The gameplay is not meant for stealth. These characters and all of the combat things and the items that I've procced onto them are not designed for stealth. No, I'm not opting into this. Because otherwise I have to do the weird thing where like I'm using corners to like trick the camera into showing me what's right around the corner. This is not as bad as the Bellevue Mines, which I think is actually the worst level in Final Fantasy 15.
Oh, I think the sewers are worse than the mines.
Oh, I hate the mines. I don't like the mines for a couple of reasons. I think the biggest put off that I have with the mines is in the early segments of the games where it disallows travel outside of a part of the map. And then after meeting with Core, which we haven't talked about Core.
I mean, we talked about him. We see him for 5 minutes and then he leaves. That's it.
You're told to delve into the dungeons dotted around the map to collect the weapons of Noctis's ancestors to gain their power. And you have 4 dungeons. You can access 4 dungeons, 2 of which are pretty easy, and 2 that are incredibly hard for Chapter 2. And the second, the Bellevue Mines.
It's really easy until you meet the boss of the mines.
Yep.
You're fighting level 7 enemies.
You're just fighting you're fighting through like these low-level goblins, and then I really don't like the backtracking at least 2 times and running down hallways. And you come across this samurai-like warrior who just knocks you down. Just an anime trope, right?
He puts you at 1 HP and then knocks you off a ledge, and then you have to heal yourself immediately or you can very easily die there. And then you eventually make your way down to the bottom of the mines. You kill that guy because you just heal through all of his nonsense. And then you get a weapon. And almost all of these dungeons, there's one room that gets you the armature, and then there's another vault where they're like, I guess this will take a different kind of key. I wonder what it is. And I can't open them yet. I don't know what they are. But I bet I'm going to be annoyed when I have to backtrack to all of these dungeons again just to open this door that I saw the first time. ZP, am I going to be really annoyed when I find out what the key is to open those?
No comments. I'm just going to say, just going to put it out there that these dungeons have weird spikes because, like, gives you a level 75 and a level 52 enemy when you're, like, level 10. And that's just not what I would consider, like, a good difficulty curve.
Well, you see, Souls games are very in ZP, so when you see something that's higher level,
this isn't a Souls game. Like, they weren't even close to, like, trying to get a Souls game or
no,
a
they
Souls
weren't.
Like that wasn't even on the itinerary for this game.
No, it's just that, I mean, the game tells you what the recommended level is for these sections. It does say, like, this dungeon is a level 35 dungeon, and that basically tells you what level the boss will be. But, I don't know, if the boss is level 50, and this is the first one of these you'll probably find because the game, like, steers you to the mines, and everything leading up to the boss is level 7, you know, having everything be level 7 except the boss, which is level 60, you know, maybe not the best. Maybe not the best design there. Especially because some of the optional dungeons are, like, level 35. The ones that the game steered me towards, the sewers and the mines, were level 50 and level 60. The ones that I happened across myself, one that I happened across myself was level 35, and the mountain, the giant mountain you can climb, that one the game kind of steers you towards, and that one's level 30.
Yeah.
So, you know, the ones that the game steers you towards are actually more difficult than the ones you would stumble across, which is weird.
Correct. Which is just like a weird choice. Don't do that. That's dumb. Don't.
I've done all 4 dungeons. I've seen all of the rest areas. At this point, I've been told, like, to go find Iris so that I can finally take the ferry to see my fiance or something. And I haven't gotten the opportunity. I stopped there. Is there anything else you want to cover in the first 20-something hours of this game that we haven't talked about?
Sure. So if you're playing this game on PC, might I recommend that you play the Steam version? Because for whatever reasons that remain unknown, the fine people at Square Enix decided to allow Final Fantasy 15 to be the first, and I believe one of the only games that they've ever released on PC with Steamworks support, which means you can mod this game in very dark and horrible ways. You know, I downloaded a mod very briefly, but then it kind of broke the game that replaced all of the trees with clown hands. You know, because I wanted to. I also had one that replaced all of the NPC shop dealers with the Toy Story dinosaur guy. But the eyes weren't properly programmed, so it's just these dark voids where there's supposed to be eyes.
It's great.
I replaced the car with Thomas the Tank Engine because of course I would.
I gotta say, there's, even in Royal Edition, it gives you some outfits for Noctis and the guys by default that maybe destroys some of the emotional tenor.
Yeah, so this game has like weird promotional tie-in content that, look, like, get your money, but also
there's an American Express logo outside of some of the shops.
There was a well-known Top Ramen promotional like thing relationship between Cup Noodle and
Cup Noodle. You get it right. They paid for that. And it's bad. Like, just seeing Noctis run around with a Cup Noodle logo on his head, while sometimes these very emotional scenes are happening. And then also, like, if you play this on PC, on Steam, you get the Gordon Freeman outfit. Like, that's just something you get. Yeah, you could be an Assassin's Creed man on the PlayStation. Yeah, so like...
And they can't help themselves because that's just, like, oddly enough, that's like the one thing that you gotta give Nomura credit for is like when people say, hey, we want to do a tie-in, can you make a Gordon Freeman outfit? He's gonna actually make good stuff that are like weirdly detailed and like good. And, but it's a very discordant look.
Yeah, when my Noctis found out his dad died and he was wearing a sombrero and like I don't even, like a what is the term for it? It's like a Mexican rodeo.
Poncho?
No, it wasn't a poncho. It's a very like hand embroidered look. A charro outfit. Like he's wearing one of those in a sombrero and he's just like, you know, sad about his dad, but the sombrero, the shot wasn't made for him to be wearing a sombrero, so the sombrero obscures his face in spots. And it's like, what? This was the game. Like, I didn't mod it. I just picked the outfit that had the best stats, which was the sombrero and the charro outfit. It was, you know, it's amazing.
And I guess the other weird thing that we're not going to talk about this when we get to the end of this game, but this was a major thing for a man by the name of Hajime Tabata, who was the head of the studio in charge of this game. He was the head of Business Division 2, and so that means he was the person in charge of Final Fantasy and also Kingdom Hearts. And I think to a certain degree, even like Dragon Quest. And Final Fantasy 15 was his big project. He was the director of it, and all the changes were largely his initiative. And then when he was like billing Final Fantasy 15, he continually promised like, okay, we're going to have all of this downloadable content. We're going to have a seasonal pass thing here. We are going to support Final Fantasy 15 well after release. And when time came and Square Enix clearly was not in the mood to like support the game that way, he just left. So Tabata has kind of a weird history with Final Fantasy and also Square Enix, but this is the end note for him. And when the 3 of the 4 DLC packages for 15 were canceled, this game got a very unceremonious end to it, which, again, we will eventually have to talk about. Also, this game is the best-selling Final Fantasy game ever. Yes, we have to discount Final Fantasy XIV because it's in a different category. It's an MMORPG. But this game, for all intents and purposes, this game starting in development, God, like what? Freaking like 2008, 2006, I think is when they started development on this game. Like it was originally a PS3 game. Like this game justifiably should have driven Square Enix into bankruptcy. And yet they really did luck out. Like I don't think they understand how lucky they got that this game having a simultaneous release on PlayStation and Xbox. They got very lucky that
there was a very hungry audience that had 10 years of no good
hungry
content.
Audience. And then on top of that, they were able to like continually make like weird stuff. Like that mobile game tie-in that's basically just a tower defense game is a money printing scheme. Like it continues to make a shit ton of money for Square, like to this day.
It came auto-installed on one of my phones.
Like to this day, that game still makes money, like a lot of money. And it is very telling, however, how quickly they cut bait when they needed to pick a new project after 15 actually came out. Like Pocket Edition is its own little weird thing. But yeah, it's a weird thing. We haven't even gotten to like the actual weird story stuff. But
yeah, because there is, I'm 26 hours in and we've gone over all the story things that have happened. There were a couple of little like side things where Gladio told Noctis to stop being so whiny. And then there's a section where Ignis was like, you need to take care of yourself. You're an adult. Prompto was like, I act like I'm happy.
And the other thing really, is I don't
anxiety.
mean to like for us to sound like we hate this game. We don't. It's just a very mindless kind of empty game that thinks that it's occupying this headspace where it's more important than it actually is. It's not. It's not this compelling story. Like learning more about Noctis is not emotionally resonant, and yet there will be times when this game really tries to go for your heartstrings, and that's why for me it just never works, because I just personally don't buy it. I don't buy any of the weird attempts at emotional storytelling in this game because it just doesn't feel earned.
Yeah, I mean, right now it is at 26 hours in, it is 4 guys, 3 of whom work for the 4th. It is 4 coworkers driving around making small talk is how it feels to me. It, like, whatever implication there is that these guys are really close friends who, like, know each other really well, and through thick and thin, they're there for each other, I don't see it yet. At this point, it is mostly 4 guys being real surface. It sounds like, any bus I was on to go to a sporting event where me and the rest of the team needed to be on the bus. It's just a bunch of dudes being bros. And that's fine. I just kind of expected a little bit more depth at this point. And I guess I don't know why I should, because the triggers for these people talking are quests with almost no content to them. And they are always talking around the quests. And occasionally they will talk about the plot event that just happened. But that's kind of it. Like, I don't feel like they're bonding. So we'll see. We're, I think about halfway through the game. We'll see if it changes. The game plays fine. There is content. The bars go up. It's hard to get that mad at a game with, a lot of world to explore and content to see. I just right now I did almost everything I could do before I moved the story forward, and I haven't seen anything that made me go, oh, I really need to talk about this. I've seen a lot of stuff where I was like, oh, I could probably listen to an hour podcast and churn that out. And there's also like what we said about like the tie-ins, like the American Express, the cup noodles. There's a ad for FF14 in this game. There's an FF14 quest line. There's a quest line for some other like gacha game that you can do. I feel like this game, I am showing it about as much respect as it's showing itself.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. I mean, that's the other. It's just a weird narrative. I hate to use this term, but it works. But like the ludonarrative dissonance of these characters trying to be earnest with you, and the story trying to do things, and then my guy has the cup of noodle outfit or looks like Gordon Freeman. Like, and you shouldn't. If the story is that important, you wouldn't do this.
Correct. And the thing that 13 had the Louis Vuitton tie-in.
Yep.
But they put that stuff in the ad. Like FF9 had a Pepsi commercial. 10 had its own tie-ins. Like these games have had cross-promotion before. This is the first one that I've seen. I don't know if the MMOs have like, wear your Mountain Dew outfit or something. But this is the first single-player FF game that just lets you completely mess with the emotional resonance of scenes and like plasters ads on things in game because Square was trying to wrench every dollar out of this game that it could. I'm surprised that the diners are diners and not KFCs or something.
Yeah. They have a different form of advertising with the diners. They've got a mascot.
Yes, but that's at least like world building. That's at least something. Like it's an in-universe thing. Not like when I walk into some of the stores and there's an American Express ad, or like when I set up my my tent with its big prominent Coleman logo on it because the outdoor gear is sponsored. It breaks. If you're going to tell a story with a bunch of proper nouns and you're trying to get me invested in the world, maybe don't have logos for companies that could not exist in universe like American Express in your game.
Yeah.
Maybe.
I don't know. We're not game designers.
I'm not a game designer. Maybe it is super resonant that someone sees Coleman and they're like, I camp with Coleman. I'm like Gladio. But I don't know. All right. So that, I think, covers the first 20-something hours of Final Fantasy 15.
It might
Are we going to
be
able to finish it for the next one?
We would need time because I don't know what you guys are doing on the main podcast, but off the deep end,
Katamari Damacy, it's great.
We played Anthem.
Yeah, well, I mean, do you think there's enough content to warrant 2 shows?
Oh, absolutely. There's enough content to do 2 shows. I was going to ask, because it has come up on the Discord, which you can join if you Deep Listens Patreon. But
Patreon.com/deeplistens, yes.
Should we rank the DLC episodes separately?
I don't know. We'll need to see. I need to play one to see how much there is to say if that's something that should be ranked separately. I need to play one because some of the DLC levels that I've done, like the gacha tie-in, that was about 20 minutes of content that was quite bad. And if they're like that, then no, I don't think we should rank them separately. Unless we rank all of them. Like the list is already long enough without every DLC getting its own ranking. If they are more substantial than that, we can talk about it.
Yeah.
Guess we'll find out. And hopefully Jeff will be well enough. We'll be able to get his take on the opening bit of the game next time when he's back. So, ZP, any closing thoughts?
Again, don't hate this game. But
don't hate it.
It
totally
might
fine.
Be the most vacuous, the most like empty calories. It might be the McDonald's quarter pounder of Final Fantasy. It's the most McDonald's quarter pounder of the Final Fantasy franchise we've ever played.
As you see when you turn the game on, this is a game for fans and newcomers alike.
I'll see this. I will say this. This is the one thing that I must say. I think that the millions of people who their first Final Fantasy game was 15 have been done a better service to this series, to what makes this series worthwhile, than the millions of people who started with Final Fantasy 13, and that being
for sure.
their barometer.
For sure. One thing I didn't say earlier is you get a chocobo. The controls for riding the chocobo are somewhere in between your controls for running around and the controls for driving your car. Each of these different modes of getting around controls differently. Every time I swap, I have this moment where I'm like, oh, right, circle is run when I'm on foot, but R2 is run with the chocobo. Square is sprint with the chocobo. Driving the car, it's right trigger, but then X is get out of the car. Hold X is get off the chocobo. X is jump and pick up items when you're on foot. Nothing controls the same. It's amazing. Also, we didn't say it, but the X button being your jump button and your pick up items button means that you very frequently will just like be jumping in place rather than interacting with the item that you're supposed to interact with. Another little thing to say is quest givers are often diner people, will be quest givers and they'll be like your diner option. So like they'll be your tower that reveals stuff on the map, but they'll also have a quest line. If you want to interact with them as shopkeepers, it's a different interaction point than if you want to take up their quest because they didn't find a way to get the menu to do both quest giving and shopkeeping. So you like I very frequently was like trying to turn in a quest, but then ended up talking to them about buying food instead, and I had to exit out of the menu and then like reposition Noctis. It feels very slapdash, and I noticed that too. So those are two things that I had on my list that I forgot to say earlier. All right, I did get the monster truck car. Did you get the monster truck car? That's fun.
No, like I told you, I'm running a mod where the car has been replaced by Thomas the Tank Engine.
Yeah, but can you drive off-road?
Yes.
Okay, then you got the monster truck car.
What if I told you that I can make Noctis Donald Duck in a mech suit?
That's pretty good. Well, if you're Thomas the Tank Engine, you can't slap Cindy's ass all over your car like you can.
Oh, right. So decals and stuff. Yeah, this game is... do you remember when they were demoing the VR version of this game? And a lot of game reviewers, and I know that we associate with this is not a lot of people when they got to the Cindy bit definitely did the look where it's like they would get up in Cindy's boobage and bootay in a way that was very shameless. I remember watching the previews and everyone did that.
Great. All right. Well, that's Final Fantasy 15, the first half of it or so, first third or half of it. We'll be back next time to cover the rest and then rank it on our Ranking of Fantasies. Thank you, ZP.
Oh, wow. So it seems like Roberto Ferrari has not fully deleted the content on his DeviantArt account, and there's maybe one picture here he probably should have deleted.
Great. And thank you, dear listeners. Reminder, you can get in touch with the show at DeepListensPod on Twitter, deeplistens.libsyn.com. We have our comment sections, and deeplistenspodcast@gmail.com. Till next time, peace.